Now I would like to focus on the HTML tags, which are the basic building blocks of the website structure. There is not many of them. It's not like learning a foreign language. There are few of them actually. In addition, later in practice we learn the specific tags we need. Even if we don't know how to use some of them, we can always find the answer on the internet. But we should know this basic tags base, and we should know what these tags are for. We already know the most basic tags. The most important of these is the HTML tag. We use it once on a page. It opens the HTML document and closes it. There should also be a doctype tag above it. The next two tags are the head and the body. The head tag creates the information space for the browser and allows the external files import. The body tag creates the space for the content displayed to the user. The basic, most common, most universal tag that has existed almost always, but not always, is the div tag. Div stands for division, so it could be a department or a group, which in itself does not have to be a semantic section. The most part of our website can be built by the div tags, because a div can be a container for almost any type of content on our website. And until the semantic tags were introduced, mostly divs were used to build the websites. Many people today build their websites with the div tags, not using the semantic tags at all. You may come across such websites on the internet, but you shouldn't create your own websites like this. You should take the advantage of the latest HTML5 standard and its semantic tags, as they are also used for indexing the websites by the search engines. We will also often use the div tags, most often as a container for the content that don't have their own semantic tag or have no semantic meaning at all. The div tag can be our menu, banner, or text, although there are already semantic tags for these three things, and we will talk about them in a moment. Basically, we can use the div tag where there's no semantic equivalent, and you will see that we will be using the div tags many times in this course. I said that in HTML5 we have new semantic tags, and one of them is the section tag, which is a div tag of a new type with the semantic meaning. The section tag is also the extraction of a group of the elements on the website. However, unlike the div tag, it has its own semantically separate meaning. It does not differ only in the appearance. It's a bit like an apartment that has rooms which are the divs, but if we give these rooms a meaning, like a kitchen, a bedroom, or a living room, then we have the sections. The second ancient tag we still use nowadays is the span tag, and it's most often used to style something in the text. If we have a p tag with the text like in this example, and we want to style some parts of this text differently, for example to have a different color, that's when we put this fragment in the span tag and style it in CSS. I am not yet explaining what the inline elements and the block elements are, but know that most of the tags in HTML are the block tags like div or p. Their characteristic is that each block tag starts with the new line. On the other hand, span is an inline tag, so we can use it in the middle of a block p tag and it won't break our text, because the inline tags don't break the line. They don't start the new line, but they put themselves next to the previous element. We should store the text in the p tag. P stands for paragraph. The text in the p tag creates a paragraph, which is a block of the text that starts with the new line. You shouldn't write your text directly in the div or the section tag. That's what the p tag is for. H1 was one of the first tags introduced into HTML. It is very popular to this day. H stands for heading. From the most important one, which is H1, to the least important one, which is H6. This hierarchy comes from the construction of the book-like websites, where the font sizes denoted the chapters and the subsections of the website. H1 was the largest and H6 was the smallest. Headings also have a semantic meaning. They emphasize that something is more important than something else. You also need to think in book terms when using the headings. You cannot use a subsection heading like H2 or H3 unless you have used the main chapter heading like H1 before. H1 is also the most important in terms of the search engines. It usually marks the most important content on the page. The page title, the company name, or the tagline that describes your website. Here we can see an example website built based on the book structure with the use of the headings. We can see some main headings, some subheadings, and some content between them. H1 does not need to appear only once on the website. We can also build a heading hierarchy separately for each section, and each section can have its main H1 heading. There are many different ways of building a website. You just have to remember to use the headings according to specification. So don't create H2 and H3 tags if you haven't used an H1 tag before, etc. Here we can see an example from the specification. H1 tag as the page title and H2 tags as the section headings. There is no one correct method for using the headings. Over the time you'll gain the experience and the intuition on how to build the structure of the headings on your website. A tag. A stands for anchor. This is a tag that also has been around since the early 90s, and it's used to post the hyperlinks to our website. HTML is a hypertext language that uses the anchors to link the text together. The A tag is used to move between different websites or subpages within the same domain. That is why we use them very often in navigation of our websites. This tag requires the href attribute to be used. This attribute must contain the exact link to the page to which we want redirect the user after clicking. IMG. Another important HTML tag we need to know. IMG is an image container. Similar to the A tag, an attribute is required for the IMG tag to work. In this case, it's the src attribute, which is the source of our image. As you can see in this example, you have to know that this tag is self-closing. If you add a closing tag to it, it would be an error. Why is IMG self-closing? Since we can't put text into IMG or nest any other element in it, the space between the opening and the closing tag would make no sense. That's why it's self-closing. UL, unordered list container. When we create a menu, we very often put it in a list container where each menu position is a list element, or as we are going to call it, a list item. In addition to the UL tag, we also have the OL tag, which is the ordered list. As you can see in this example, all items of the unordered list are dotted by default, and all items of the ordered list are numbered by default. We use the UL tag much more often than the OL tag in our daily work. So now we can see the LI tag, which stands for the list item. It is the list items that we use to display the options in the menu. Most often we also place the A tags in the navigation in the list items to make them clickable and lead the user to the individual sections of the website. Article. It creates some grouped texts. We know intuitively what an article is, and intuition is the developer's best tool. It is simply extracted content that has, for example, a title, author, content, etc. As we can see in this slide, for example. Here we can see an example of using an article from the HTML5 specification. Interestingly enough, the article has its own header. The header may appear on the websites many times. Additionally, we have the heading in the form of the H2 tag, in which the A tag is nested so that the heading is also a link, and several P tags, which are the paragraphs. Section. Once again, I would like to emphasize that the section groups the content dedicated to a certain topic. Always in terms of semantics, it can also be grouped in terms of the appearance. Here we have an example of using several sections, separating their semantic meaning with the classes. The class is one of the basic attributes for the tags in HTML. We will learn all about this later on. But here you can see that we have a separate About section and a Product section. Here we can see an example of using a section in the article. A section can be one of the main elements of our website, but it can be also a part of something smaller such as an article. Header. One of these main elements that we often nest directly in the body tag. Of course, it can also be nested within other elements, but usually every website has its main header placed directly in the body tag. It's intended to represent an introduction to the main element. A banner is often placed there. There may also be a page title or a tagline in a header tag. Here is an example where a header can occur more than once on a page. There are only several tags that can appear on a page once, like HTML, body, or head. All the other tags may appear on a page multiple times with no problem. Here is an example of using a header directly in the body tag with nested navigation in it. We can do it this way as well. Very often the navigation is created as a separate element, but it can also be created as a part of the header tag with no problem. Here we can see an example of using the header tag as an introduction to an article. In addition, we can observe the aside tag, which we will go to in a moment. It is mainly used to extract the additional content beyond the main content in the element. The main tag is the main part of a page, section, or an article. It can be also used as a main part of the website. You can see the example of using the main tag in the website structure on this slide. Nav. Nav stands for navigation. We usually use it as a menu. And before the nav tag was created, we often used the div tag with the menu or nav class. Now we should only use the semantic nav tag. We very often build a navigation using a list, usually the UL tag, which is the unordered list. And in this example, we can observe it pretty well. Additionally, we can notice that the list items contain the A tags, which means that they are clickable links to other subpages. Here we can see that the navigation may occur repeatedly on the website. We may have the main navigation that allows us to navigate the entire website, the navigation within the article that allows us to move to the relevant piece of the text, or even the external navigation that leads to the other websites, for example, our partners. Remember also that the navigation does not necessarily have to be a list. For example, the navigation might look like on this slide, but the usual practice is to create the navigation using a list. This is encouraged by the HTML5 language specification, and let's get used to it. Aside. It is the part of the website that is semantically extracted from the main content, semantically and visually. For example, it could be info about the author or some of the site curiosity about the topic described. And here's an example from the book about the MongoDB, which is the database. Such a separate part of the website should be put in the aside tag. This tag was taken from the book typography, and we can just see it very clearly in this example. We can often use the aside as a column on the side of the website. It can be used, for example, for advertising or something else not related directly to the main content of the website. Here we have, for example, the use of the aside tag to put the navigation in it. So in this case, we can imagine the aside tag as a column on the side of the website with the menu in it. Footer. Also the tag most often used directly in the body, but it can be also used as the ending element of another element, for example an article. It's a summary of a website or an element on a page. In the footer of the website, we usually include copyright, contact details, or information about the author of the website. But as we can see, footer can also appear at the end of another element, such as an article. It may even happen that we will find the footer tag in the nav tag. If there's any reason to make such a summary of our navigation, we can do it with no problem. Let's also mention some other interesting tags that may appear. One of them is, for example, the strong tag. It's also a semantic tag. Strong marks the certain piece of the text as important. The content of this tag is positioned higher in the search engines. In addition, it makes the text bold by default, but it's its secondary role, and boldness can be easily turned off in CSS. The strong tag, just like the span tag, is also an inline element, so we can nest it in the block elements like the p tags without the fear of the line breaks in the text. Now we can see the M tag. M stands for emphasis. Thanks to it, we inform the browser and the search engines that this is the highlighted information. Not necessarily important, but distinguished in some way. B and I are the old tags that we should not use anymore because they have no semantic meaning and they only affect the appearance of the element. As we know, the appearance of the elements should be determined using CSS, and HTML should only be responsible for the structure of the website. The B tag makes the text bold and the I tag makes the text italic. Here is a tag where we can place the forms on our website. Forms are a very important part of the websites. For this, we use a form tag in which we can put various things. As you can see, it might be a label, input, or a button. We will be learning more about the forms because, as you can see, the forms themselves introduce even more of their own tags. BR is another tag that we probably shouldn't use. This is the tag that allows us to go to a new line. If we use a BR tag between the tags containing the text, it's as if we would hit enter on our keyboard. BR stands for break. we should not use it because it affects the arrangement of the elements on our website, and as we know already, CSS should be responsible for that. Here you can see some examples of the self-closing tags: img, meta, input, and br. They used to be closed with the slash at the end. Today there is no such need and we shouldn't close them like that anymore. We've covered the most important tags at this point, so let's move on to the practical part now.